Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Devis Scottus. Today, we are discussing the top three video game consoles of all time, or at least our top three video game consoles of all time, as Zacharias has legally made me specify. So, without further ado, let's just break down what my top three are. So, number one, this should be a surprise to no long term gaming fans. The PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 had so many great games and bangers in its lifetime. Man, oh man, did I play so many games for the PS2. Like, that shit was my jam back in the day, and I played it with all my friends. And then I was able to take the flat mini kind of PS2 and put that, like, bring that around so much easier and shit like that. The PS2 was the system back in the day, as far as I'm concerned. Now, debatably, the GameCube was also the system around at the time. But I think that, gotta say, the PlayStation 2 just, chef's kiss. Absolutely incredible. So the PlayStation 2 is one of the three on my list. In second place, now this is some bias because I played a lot with this system. I had a lot of times where, a lot of bonding moments with my friends with this system. The Xbox 360 means a lot to me as well because man, oh man, that system had just so much going for it. And I could think of so many great times, so many great exclusives. And back in that time period when they made you pay for Xbox Gold to get online, and I know that sucked, they would also give you free games all the time on that shit. Like, I got free games from those motherfuckers all the time. They were giving away like good shit too, like Bioshock Infinite I got for free. I was like, God damn, you're just giving me this game? And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, did I love having free games. Like, that shit fucking ruled. Oh man, the Xbox 360 was so great. And it's unfortunate because it really kind of fell off when we got to like the Xbox One and they really shit the bed on that one. Now, granted, I know I talked about the PS2, and then I did have a PS3 for a while as well, and there were some good PS3 shit as well. But that was around the time when I also got into, Bethesda gaming, and that's oh man, if you remember Bethesda gaming on the PS3, like it felt like the Bethesda company just fucking hated you. Like, you could not play their games for shit. All the DLCs were delayed by like a year if you played on PlayStation. You really got the shortest end of the stick on fucking PlayStation. That is what made me jump to Xbox 360 because that shit pissed me off so bad. Like, goddamn, did that shit suck. So no, I could not continue to play on PlayStation after that. And eventually, I did come back. I do own the PS4 now, but you know, I really just bought the PS4 because I wanted to play Bloodborne, and I'm very glad I did because I had a lot of fun with that game. But I feel like this list would not be complete without a Nintendo system because Nintendo is like a big league of gaming as well. So we covered the PlayStation side, which was PlayStation 2. We had the Xbox side, which was the Xbox 360. But I feel like we need to cover Nintendo as well because who are we kidding? Nintendo has also been killing the game since like they've been doing it. They had so many good consoles though, and that's where it gets really hard for me to narrow it down because there's a lot of great contenders for Nintendo. They made the Game Boy, they made the Wii, they made the Switch, they made the GameCube. Like, so many good things. But and I think ultimately I really had to think about this. I love the Wii, but it's a fun gimmick and quite frankly, the shit pissed me off always having to use the motion controls. So it really came down to which one do I like better. Well, the Game Boy, I should also mention. I love the fact that it was small, portable, handheld. But I really only played Pokemon on that, and I really didn't play anything else on the Game Boy. So it's like a question of, do I like the Switch better or do I like the GameCube better? Now, I'm going to disclude the Switch because the Switch 2 is here now and can play basically all the same games that the Switch could, but better. And the Switch 2 is so new that I feel reasonably okay saying that I can't make that one of my greatest of all time because we still haven't even seen like where it's going, right? So that means that my Nintendo pick for greatest system of all time is going to be the GameCube. And the GameCube could do so much stuff. Like, not only could it play all the GameCube games, but it could also play all of the Game Boy games with an attachment that it had. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Devin, if you love the GameCube games so much, you could have played all those on the Wii as well. But you couldn't play the Game Boy games on the Wii, and the Wii games themselves, while some were very iconic, don't get me wrong, Smash Bros. Brawl, Wii Sports, like they had some really fucking good ones for the Wii. I just don't know if that's really what I want to say is my favorite console from them. So I really want to say that GameCube takes it. And, that might be controversial for some, but not for me. I think that it is a good casting. PS2, Xbox 360, and the Nintendo GameCube. Those are my top three of all time. Very much dated in some of the earlier days of gaming. Not earliest, because obviously you had the, you know, arcade machines and stuff like that, but earlier days of at home console gaming. And, you know, does some part of me wish that I had a mobile version of like the games? Yeah, I love the DS, the 3DS, the PSP, even kind of the Switch, which is why again the Switch was on there because the fact that you could have it in the handheld mode and just carry it around, so goddamn cool. But I truly just don't. I think that the GameCube takes it. Iconic system design, the fact that the discs were just so neat, just being smaller disc and everything like that. The controller, I still use a GameCube controller with my Switch 2 to this day. God damn, did I love that. That controller, as weird and funky as it is compared to like Xbox and like PlayStation controllers, I do love the Nintendo GameCube controller. I think it's iconic and I think it is fun. Those are my three consoles. I am curious to see if Scott and I had any overlap here. We will not overlap on the 360, I know that, but maybe we'll overlap with the GameCube and PlayStation 2. But I guess we'll see. Or I guess maybe you've already seen. I don't know which direction I put these videos in. But all I do know is that I got stuff to do, so I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye!
Hello everyone, that was the Nintendo GameCube theme tune sung terribly. I'm Scortus of Dever Scortus, and today we are talking about the top 3 gaming systems in our opinion. As you can see, actually, as you can't see, this is my DVD shelf. As you can see, I love games. I collect games. I think games are great. Who doesn't? And I'm excited to see what Devon's top 3 list would be for the gaming systems. But I had a big debate with myself where I'm like, what would my top 3 even be? And what I found was there were lots of battles between 2 different systems to actually make it on the list. It wouldn't be a case where it's like, well, if I pick one, then the other would be my 3rd or 2nd place or something like that. This was a case where I was actually thinking, I only need one of these systems. I don't need both. So we'll get into that as we start to explore some of these. At least 2 of the positions will have that, and the 3rd one, who knows what will happen there? Something magical will happen there. So let's go ahead and get started with PS2 and the GameCube. Now, both systems have a very special place in my heart. The GameCube was one of the first systems I ever played, but funnily enough, I didn't actually own the system. It was something that my gran had. I only actually got a GameCube oh god, that would have been last year, like August time. It was my grand's GameCube, which is really sweet. So I have that now, and it's part of my collection. And whenever she comes to visit, I want to play it and have a watch again. Like, I'm 5, but I have a lot of affinity towards the GameCube. There's so many great games. There's Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, Smash Melee. What else? There's so many. Mario Tennis. I mean, if we're getting into sequels, Pikmin 2, Pokemon Colosseum, which admittedly is more of a it's got good vibes game than it rather being a good game. It's really just okay. Probably better played on an emulator when you can speed it up, but I'm not advocating for that. You didn't hear that from me. So I think there's just so many good games. I mean, there's Wind Waker, and that's not even getting into the third-party games, the games that would be on every system. Simpsons Hit and Run, Worms 3D, let's look at the shelf, Need for Speed Underground, Sonic Heroes. So many good games. I can't remember, like, just, how can I forget Billy Hatcher? Such a cool game, never brought it forward. They never brought like that game to the Wii, never made a sequel, never did anything. I feel like that's just missed potential. Billy Hatcher was a cool game. So many good GameCube exclusives. But then we look at the PS2, and that also had some of these third-party games, you know. Actually, basically every third-party game would end up on the PS2. It was the big system. It beat the GameCube in terms of sales, but obviously sales on everything. But the PS2, I don't know if eventually they got rid of this, but it originally launched with a DVD player. It made so much sense for families to buy the PS2. And at the time, it was a smart deal. It would be, oh, so I have to pay maybe £500 or something to buy a DVD player, or I can get a PS2 for £300, which is also a game system. Yeah, I'm probably going to get the PS2. But it was such a cool system. I mean, everyone had a PS2. I think they were still making games of PS2 until like 2014 or something like that. I mean, yeah, it was FIFA, but still making it because it was one of the best-selling systems ever, if not the best. Maybe the Switch made that like second place. I don't know, but PS2. So many games on that system. There was the Ratchet and Clank trilogy. Now, there's so many trilogies that the GameCube just didn't have in terms of the Nintendo-made games. It had Pikmin 1 and 2, had Pokemon Colosseum, and the sequel to that. There were sequels. Metroid Prime and then Metroid Prime 2. But there was never like a trilogy of games where PS2 had the Jack series, it had Sly, it had Ratchet and Clank, it had, I think, I can't remember if the third God of War game was on the PS2, but at the very least the first two were. I had GTA, I don't know if that eventually went to Xbox, but the fact that GTA is there is like, that's like, you basically defined a generation with the GTA games. Everyone was like, oh, we have to make a game like that. Like, Simpsons Hit and Run was basically like a GTA clone. And it was a good GTA clone, there's nothing wrong with being a clone, but it inspired so much. Jak 2 is a GTA clone, essentially. It is ridiculous how many games were like, yeah, we'll just take the parts that worked and make it into our own game. So, when I really look at it, we're looking at the quality of games. I love the GameCube games. This is probably one of the harder debates between systems, because I love the GameCube and I love the PS2. The GameCube technically has better graphics. If you were to ask someone like, oh, if I were to play, let's say, I don't know if this one specifically. Actually, you know what? I do know this one specifically, so I'll jump to this instead. I was going to say Spider-Man 2. Sonic Heroes. Technically, the best way to play that game is on the GameCube. But I guarantee if I looked at the sales, it would be the PS2 that would have done the best, because everyone had it. Like, it's just, it exists. And then also, I think for that game, that makes sense for it to be like a GameCube game. And in fairness, it is a GameCube game that I have, so maybe that's part of it. But there are some on here that I'm like, playing it on the GameCube. Now, why would I do that? Like, James Bond screams that this should be a PS2 game. It really should. I've seen that GameCube version exist. I'm like, how would that work? And I love the GameCube controller, but I don't know, like Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, this just needs to be a PS2 game. It can't be anything else. There's just so many things like that where it just makes sense for it to be a PS2 game. I don't know if it's just because I own it like that. I wonder if there's any games on my shelf. Honestly, maybe even Simpsons Hit and Run. I have the GameCube version for that. I don't have the PS2. Anyway, my point is, PS2 actually, even though I'm a GameCube, I'm a Nintendo guy, and I maybe like rather play the game. I don't know. I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say PS2. PS2 is a top. It's in the top 3. Don't know where it is in the top 3 yet. We'll get to that. It's in the top 3. Sorry, GameCube. Love you. PS2 just has so much going for it. There's so many games that I haven't even played yet. So many good ones. Love it. I love the PS2. So, moving from PS2, we have another battle. And this one is a good in-house fighting battle. It's a case of the DS versus the 3DS. Ooh, now, for me, I thought it was an easy answer. I was coming into this and I was like, oh yeah, like, it has to be the 3DS. And I've basically given it away that it is not the 3DS. I eventually went for the DS. I'm holding it the wrong way. The DS. And the reason why is 3DS, if you were to tell me, Scott, how would you like to play your games? I would say the 3DS. 3DS is great. I think the 3DS is such I mean, this is a smaller 3DS, and even still, I'm like, oh, it just feels good in my hands. The original DS does not. It doesn't really look good. Maybe like the DSi, like all that would feel better than the original 3DS. But I'm talking about like my 3DS. I think it's the XL. That just feels great in my hands. There is a reason I am still playing my 3DS, even though they have not made a game for that in, I think, 11 years, maybe 9. Big range there, 9 or 11. So I'm still, whenever I'm travelling, I went through a wedding recently and I travelled to a different country, I brought my 3DS. And I technically brought my Switch. I wasn't playing that on the plane. I wasn't playing that portably. I am still playing my 3DS portably, and there's so many games on that. I spent an absurd amount of money buying games from the eShop before it closed. I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have just hacked my 3DS and downloaded the ones I wanted. But the thing is, if I had done it any other way, I wouldn't have learned about some obscure 3DS games. Like, this is amazing. This is a fantastic game. I think that like there's so many obscure, like Concept Revolt, I think that's how you pronounce it, is a great game. Truly, they're making one for Switch. Actually, they might be making 2 for Switch. Buy one of them. It is basically Monopoly meets Yu-Gi-Oh! Imagine having properties in Monopoly and then defending them with monsters for Yu-Gi-Oh! Being like, my attack is better than your defense, and it's such a good game. One of the best that I was like, oh, I would never have played this had I not found it. It's just great. It's fantastic. But looking at some of the like heavy hitting 3DS games, there are some great ones, but there's also some that I'm like, that was a bit sticky, if you will. Mainly towards the end, like, well, this is a towards the beginning, but the Mario and Luigi Dream Team Bros game, that was a disappointment, especially coming from Bowser's Inside Story. Having the remakes of Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story, that was disappointing as well, because those were also just sticky. Like, I honestly felt like, maybe I just don't like Mario and Luigi games anymore. And then I went back to play them, like, oh no, it was just these were bad versions of the games. And there are some great 3DS games, but let's look at the DS library. Yeah, for every like Link Between Worlds, which I think is a fantastic game, and the Pokemon games are great, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, super fantastic Mystery Dungeon game. DS had Pokemon Platinum, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, had the spin-off games, had the Ranger games, had Mystery Dungeon. That's just Pokemon. Let's look at obscure JRPGs. If you just were trapped in like a cave of JRPGs and you're like, well, I guess I've got to play them, you will be playing DS JRPGs. They're the best way of playing. I don't know why I'm saying you're trapped in a cave, but the fact that you can bring them portably, and yeah, you can play them on your 3DS. If we're looking at the games themselves, they are DS games. If you said, Scott, you can only play 3DS games, you can only play DS games, I'm going to pick DS games. There's some great 3DS games out there that I still want to play, and I'm desperate to play them. But there's so many good DS games. Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, there's that GTA Chinatown game, which I've heard is great. There's just so much. There's so much from that era of gaming. It's like, yeah, just sign me up. Love it. So, in this case, we're battling here between 3DS and DS. Love the hardware of the 3DS. I think the 3D effect is so cool. DS has that original factor. People were like using that stylus and doing all sorts of crazy things with that. And yeah, they tried to do it with the 3DS, but by that point it was just a case of like, yeah, we've got the two screens, like we'll maybe use it. It won't be a big deal. I think DS actually wins. We have the PS2 and the DS. Now, this is actually my 5th time recording this. The first time I was doing really well, and then I got distracted and like I'm restarting. And then the other times there was something in my throat. But in the first time, the actual battle was going to be between the Wii and the Switch, and then I rambled on, and turns out I was like, and it's none of these, it's something else. I just don't want to talk about the initial battle between the Switch and the Wii, just not go into a lot of detail and then get into what the something else was that ultimately beat both these for 2 different reasons. Each game system so far has been similar in some way. There's been a battle. It's been a battle between 2 different generations, or 2 things in the same generation, 2 systems from the same company, but like, oh, one's technically better than the other. Like, oh, which one wins? Which one wins? Then we have the Switch and the Wii, and these 2 very different systems, I found a linking point, which is they are by far the most successful Nintendo has ever been. The Wii sold so much, and the Switch, I think, eventually beat it, maybe came close. These were what put people, what made Nintendo just known to modern families. It's 2 different, like, oh, when I was young, like, this is what put Nintendo on the map. Then the kids of this generation, like, this is what made the parents be like, oh, like, Nintendo, like, you should play that. Like, it was a Switch. It's like, the Switch was so cool. Now, in my initial battle between it was going to be looking at, like, well, there was so many fantastic Wii games, but there's some weird Wii games. I mean, like, for every Mario Galaxy you had 5 I Spy Spooky Mansion. There was so many bad Wii games, and yeah, you can avoid them. And actually, when I was looking at it, the only bad Wii games I have were bought on purpose to be bad. There was none that I had on my shelf that I was like, yeah, this is bad. This is like bad. Like, others just made sense. Like, why I had it. Like, oh yeah, of course I have like Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End on the Wii. That was my brother's game, but I have all the games now because I'm the game man. That just made sense. Like, it wouldn't be like an I Spy. Like, why would I have I Spy Spooky Mansion? So, in fairness, I didn't have as many weird games just by me playing them, like, or wanting them. But I just think there are a lot of crappy Wii games. There's some great ones: Skyward Sword, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, Animal Crossing, not New Leaf. What is it? Let's go to the city? Yes, let's go to the city. There's a lot of good Wii games. It's cool, the motion, but then it was like, but it's not that good. And then Switch, again, the popular system, but then I was actually thinking about it, like, but do I like a lot of original Switch games, and I think they're okay, but none are like, none super excite me. The games that I like from the Switch end up being ports and remakes. It is a good portable system. I'm clever. So I think the Switch is a good system for ports. I think some of the originals, I'm like, they're always missing something. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is missing music, an actual conclusion to its plot, any sort of satisfying game mechanics. There is so much missing from that game, but look at the remake or remaster, whatever you want to call it, for the original game. Fantastic! One of the best ways of playing that game. Actually, the best way of playing that game. And that comes from someone that is planning on playing the 3DS version of that game just for the fun of it. I think Switch, truthfully, has some good games, has some games that I haven't played yet that I've heard are amazing. I don't know if I really love it as a system. So I was looking at this and thinking, like, I have to pick one, I have to pick one. And then I really thought about it for a moment and I thought, maybe it's not these. Maybe it has nothing to do with this and I've just wasted your time and my time in discussing it. Maybe, just maybe, it's the Game Boy. Now, the Game Boy was the first system that I owned, like personally owned. This is it's technically my second Game Boy. I don't know what my original one, the sort of, the one that looks more like that, if you can imagine it, and it's always open. But the clamshell, love the clamshell. This is the first Nintendo system to have this shell. My mum and dad used to love that. The fact that you can put it in your pocket. The fact that I should do that. I should go places and like put it. I'm going to do that. When it's nice and sunny, I'm going to go into the city and I'm going to play like some GBA game just out in public. I mean, that'll be so much fun. But looking at the games on the GBA, I was like, oh, yeah. There's a lot of ports, like the Switch. There's Yoshi's Island. There's Mario 2, 3 and World as ports. There's the whole Donkey Kong Country trilogy. There's a lot of ports on the system, and that's cool that they're able to somewhat mimic the SNES. But there's a lot of good original titles on there as well. There's Mother 3, there's what else? Golden Sun 1 and 2. There's the Mario Tennis games. There's a Mario Party game that I will actually defend to the last bitter end, and I just think there's so many GBA games. There's random games like Spyro. There's Spyro games on GBA. I hope they add them to the Switch Online, only because they are, from memory, really cool. Because they're like, Spyro is like normally one of these like 3D platformers where you're collecting things. They do that in a sort of top-down perspective. I think that's really cool. But they tried to just bring the PS1 gameplay into a GBA format. Even if they had to compromise a bit. I think that's really cool. There's just a lot of games. Like the biggest complaint I have about the GBA is my young self was like, how come some of these games have passwords and then others don't? Like passwords like, oh, I've got to go to this level. I honestly thought like, this game was cheap, like I made this super cheap. But as like Pokemon and all that, like yeah, I just think it's a good system. It's a really good system. Honestly, the worst part about the GBA is the sound. I think some of those soundtracks can be a bit like but beyond that, I think it's a good system. I think you've got like obscure games, you've got weird ones. I think at this point we can safely say the top three in any order, and then we'll organise it. PS2, then we have DS and GBA. Funnily enough, it's two portable systems. And then one that's not. But I think I just played a lot of portable games, and my family was always like travelling places, going somewhere to bring it around. I was mentioning earlier Superstar Saga, great on the GBA, fantastic. Can't believe they managed to do that on the GBA. So now we get to the important part. How are we going to organise the top three? Now that we've done the battles, this will be nice and simple. to wrap us up, I'm thinking GBA, as great as it is probably the lowest on the list. I think it is number 3. Then we have the battle between PS2 and DS. For me, it's quite simple. I think PS2 is number 2 because I think it's great. DS, again, it's portable. You can bring it everywhere. You can do so much. It's like these massive worlds on a tiny system. It's great. I mean, I just think games are great, aren't they?